Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going over RSX dash swap in a 2001 Honda Civic. This is an LX. This is, I believe, what the information I will be covering will be the same for a 01 to 05. But I'm just going over the general info and what you need, and just, you know, kind of the general info. There's not much out there on a shop as is, or on the swap as is. I'll be able to cover some of the stuff that wasn't talked about and stuff that I learned along the way. So first and foremost, what you're gonna need. First and foremost, you got your dash. I got the whole dash out of a RSX that I bought as a parts car. I bought it originally for the motor, but I took the seats out of it as well and swapped them in here. It was an RSX base automatic. But I took the dash, the cluster. It was originally a base. I took the pigtails. So, about, I don't know, probably a good foot of the wiring from the cluster. I took, oh man, I'm trying to remember. Also, one of the things that isn't truly covered is that metal core support behind the dash you will need. It is almost easier to pull with the dash attached because of how hard some of these bolts are to get to. Granted, you will have to undo the wiring from the rest of the car, which can be a hassle. The wiring is the difficult part of this swap. And it tends to be tedious. But yeah, so you need that metal core support. The only RSX wiring I used was from the cluster, so the pigtails off of that. And I was able to use the I believe this is this I believe this is the RSX hazard switch. Or it's the RSX hazard switch, but I believe it's the Civic plug. Works as is. I might have pulled the wiring apart and extended it. I'm using the Civic radio harness. That's I kept as is. And then I used the pigtails for this. Now, I just color matched to get, just color matched random wires. There was a whole bunch of spares with the Civic dash harness. So I used the pigtails off of this. I don't even think this works. It might not. I haven't noticed a difference. I've tested it. So if it does work, it's not noticeable. My rear defroster works. The AC button works. This car does not have AC, so I do not confirm if it is working. My temperature, though, this is the weird part. So it only works or only moves if it's all the way one way. So if you want cold, this does nothing, but if you move it to here, it'll adjust. Now you can, before it adjusts all the way, you let back and it'll stop. And it's real tedious, but it works. Now, another thing with the heat is, so there's the stock RSX air box. It doesn't fit perfectly. So like mine, when I'm trying to change the temperature, it'll catch, and there's a bit of resistance from the dash being pushed against that harness, or that dash bar behind it is pushing against the air box. So it's preventing the, flaps and everything from opening. And it's a pain. If I set it to cold and I have it, I let it go too far, I have to actually go up and poke a little part of the air box so that it will, bump it over. Now my fan, that works great. And my, I don't even know what this button's called. I've never cared, but yeah, that it's usable. I've been dailying this car for a bit because The other daily is down. Now I'm K-swapped, so my ECU is literally just, I cut out the RSX glove box and I just have the ECU sitting in the glove box. I want to find a better way to fix it. Now, I couldn't get the RSX kick panels to work, so they're just empty. That wasn't bad though. I mean, that could be worse. I mean, I don't have a problem with them being gone. So, I don't know. I mean, and there's just wiring problems everywhere. Like this catches. It's catching on the wiring harness for this, so be careful when you're putting that in. I need to take it apart and move it out of the way. I just haven't. RSX center console. It works with the stock shifter, e-brake and stock shifter. This is out of an automatic, so I did not have a shifter boot. Also with the short shifter, I did have to trim because it'll hit. So, but that's not a problem. This airbag isn't even plugged in because I can't get the wires to reach because I routed it. So keep that in mind when you're putting the dash in. Make sure your wires are routed properly. I'm using Civic A-pillar panels. I just cut them. I could pop these off and do a better job. I didn't care. Now that side I over trimmed. But that's Civic A-pillar panel, and you do have to take just an inch off the front of the dash. Now there is a line when you have the dash out. You can tell that it's like already kind of a setup, good place to cut. So I just cut there and it fits no problem. Haven't had any problem with fitment up there. This all here is from a Civic. Didn't have to mess with that at all. Civic lower panels. Some say that it does rub on here. I mean, it does rub, but I've had this swap for months and it's not showing any proof of it. I've heard of some that theirs will squeak. Mine doesn't. Also, mine being an LX, I have no sunroof, so I don't have any of the spare features. Cruise control is deleted, so I just covered it up with just little block off ports. Now I did hook up the rear cigarette lighter. I just spliced from the two wires from this cigarette lighter and routed them. Where did I even put the wires? I think I hit them either underneath. I put them underneath the carpet and I routed them back to the rear cigarette lighter. So, passengers, they can use a cigarette lighter, charge your phone or whatever. Now, everything works on the cluster from what I can tell. Turn that off. So, it's K-swapped, so my immobilizer light's always on from the different ECU. I haven't had any problem with fuel, speedo. I mean, it's all been working great. Now my ABS light is always on because this car doesn't have ABS. It has an SRS light for, because the airbag isn't plugged in, and I will at one point, and then it has a quick release. So, but oil light works, check engine light works, everything works. Let's see, brake light works for the e-brake. Even this one I was surprised by. I don't recall if the Civic cluster had this, but when you open it, or open your doors, the actual little door, light works. I was surprised by that. I don't know, just a little thing. Now for the wiring itself, I just color matched everything. So But since this is an 01, for the 01 to 02, the cluster wiring is different. So this car I had swapped to a 04 cluster already. And I was able to go, I had to take a 01 to 02 Civic wiring diagram and translate it to the 03 to 05 cluster diagram, because and then I found a RSX diagram and I was able to translate it to which wires go where. Now, if it was a 04 to 05, or no, 03 to 05, I'm 90% sure it's color match. You might want to check online, check some wiring diagrams, see what they say. You will have some spare wires on both sides. I do not know from what specifically, so I wish, I don't know what either wires go to. I assume some's for like the anti-theft, or also the wiring was out of an automatic. The RSX Type S cluster plugged right into it, no problem. So I assume that there's maybe some extra wiring for the park, neutral, and reverse. So I didn't have a problem with that though. This was all color matched, like I said before. I believe that was all the wiring required for that. Removing the dash was a pain out of both cars. I had to remove the previous dash before to replace the heater core, so that was fairly easy. I knew what I was doing when I pulled it apart. But there's a lot of hidden screws. Take your time. Try not to rush it and it'll go smoothly, but it looks great. I love it. It's amazing for daily use. No complaints. I mean, all my mirror controls work and everything. I believe that just plugged right in, if I remember right. So that wasn't bad at all. I'm trying to remember any little things, but the front tweeters, they aren't hooked up. I'm just running, some cheap Walmart speakers, because the solid motor mounts make the interior so loud that quality speakers I didn't really care for. I have GPS on here as well, so I got that poking up through there. I want to find a plastic cover for up there, but also the RSX, from at least on my swap, the RSX, you need all your air vents off of the RSX, all the little air vents. I even tried hooking this up. There's a little air vent here, but the Civic air box behind the dash doesn't have the option, so I just put that in. I think it still has a little tube running on it, but it doesn't have it hooked up. But the rest, it kind of blows randomly. I do not believe that the vents seat perfectly onto the Civic airbox, but it's just enough to where my air vents work. It defrosts the windows. It does the job. So I would say with this swap, if you're looking for all your stuff to work, I'm sure you can get this working better if you really took your time to find some diagrams and really went into it. I'm sure you can get that working better. I don't know if you can get it working perfectly, because the way that these are all set up differently than a Civic. That works great. That's all I can recall on the swap itself, but it's fairly straightforward. That core support or whatever is held in by underneath those covers. There's bolts that go, or there's two bolts there, and then there's two bolts that are hidden that go down like this behind the dash. I don't remember how specifically that works. And then being K-swapped, I'm running I still have the Civic dash harness, which plugs right in to this is an EP3 ECU with the O2 sensor hooked up to it, and then I just have EP3 engine harness running into it that I didn't have to mess with, but that's not related if you're doing if you have a D17 still. So here's the plug for my airbag still. You can still use this. I still using Civic dash harness, Civic fuse box. I need to find and make a cover for the sides at least. Kind of, you know, exposed. I mean, like wiring here, that could be pushed up, but I just haven't cared. There's the air box and everything. That's all that exposed, so. But I mean, it looks good. I mean, the lines kind of line up with the Civic. It is just very manageable, very dailyable. I love it. Now, is it worth it? It depends. If this right here is what you want, then yeah, it's worth it. The Civic Dash is so boring. I love the updated cars. It reminds me too much of the older EKs and, you know, the EJs. So I was just like, I want to do the dash swap. I have this stuff, so I did it. You can get all this at Pick and Pull, probably fairly cheap. Wouldn't be too bad considering, maybe from a part out, but Civic or RSX airbag that, you know, that bolted up because it's, you know, this RSX support. But now the only reason I'd say it's not worth it is maybe, I mean, if you don't know a little bit about wiring, or, you know, how to wire, how to read diagrams, I mean, this swap, I can see it being a pain. I mean, this was my biggest wiring project for me. I have done more since. I installed electronic power steering and, you know, the K-swap. I've also done some other little wiring to this car and then my RSX. So I have done a little bit. So I had a little bit of experience going in. For taking the dash out, I highly recommend just poking around for YouTube videos. There's videos, there's forums. Definitely makes it worth it. So, or makes it easier, I guess. Now, I do plan at some point swapping to RSX door panels. The Civic ones aren't too bad. I just love the way the RSX door panels look. I just love the way they, you know, you can hold them the way they fit. I love the little pockets. I don't know how specifically I'm gonna go about it with this car, but that's a plan in the future. If that does happen, I will make a video about it since there's nothing on it. So that is definitely something I need to do. But and then, you know, just because I'm gonna go over the RSX seats. RSX base black cloth seats. I'm one of the very few that likes the cloth more than the leather. Less likely to rip, they last longer, and I find them more comfortable, especially during the winter, you know, when they're not too cold. But let's see. You do have to modify this back hole that's underneath the thing. I gotta, crap. There we go. Okay. It's rusting a little bit. But you have to, I took the grinder and I just cut a little bit of a slit for this back bolt. Everything bolts right up. Most of the seats plug in, or the plugs plug right in. I don't even know if it's plugged. I don't even know if these are just dangling or if it's plugged in at all. The RSX center console also just does bolts straight into these. I only have one on the other side. I don't have a bolt that size specifically. So, but this car, RSX front, you know, with the seats and everything, and then with the, you know, being a longer car, has more leg room in the back with cloth seats. It is a, you know, it can seat 5 too. I mean, it's a very comfortable car. Great for daily use. I've owned it for over a year now. I bought it bone stock, so I've been able to see the progress with it, and I definitely think the dash swap is worth it. People, it's cool at meets. You know, people, you know, get some Honda nerds, you know, kind of googly eyes over it. You know, they didn't know that you could even fit it in there. It's pretty cool. I love this car at meets. It's a definitely gets some different kind of looks. So thank you for watching. If you have any comments, let me know. Or if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know down in the comments, or hit up my message my Instagram if you want faster replies. I'll put my Instagram down below. And yeah, so don't forget to like and follow and subscribe too. Definitely need support. So thank you for watching. Alexander out.